Our interview this morning is with Clarence Milton Butch Swisher. Butch was born in Fort Worth, November of 1942. He served in the United States Air Force, active duty from 63 until 67, 1963 till 1967, and then he was in the reserve from 1983 until 2002. His highest rank attained was Staff Sergeant E5. This interview is being conducted at Burleson, Texas. Today is Friday, July the 23rd, the year 2010. My name is Dale Dexheimer. I'm not related to Butch at all. Also in the room we have Milton Gibson, who runs the audio-visual equipment. This interview is conducted for the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress and also for Operation Remember for the city of Burleson, Texas. And with that introduction, Butch, we'll let you tell us about your time in the U.S. military.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And I did have a cousin that was in the Air Force and had made a career out of it. And so that was sort of But I was in a job where I worked with my dad and running the machine and day after day. And I said, this is not for me. And I decided that I wanted to go into the service and make a career out of the service. And also, if nothing else, be able to get an education after I got out on the GI Bill. That's exactly what I had in mind. And I really wanted to make a career out of it. But I'll tell you that story as I'm going through here. Enlisted in Fort Worth, Texas. I finished up my day's work on a Thursday and then left on a Friday. Some of these guys, they would have 30 days, they'd be party for 30 days and then finally go in. I didn't do that. I just left my paycheck with my dad and just went on in and went to Dallas, from Dallas to San Antonio, and so there at Lackland Air Force Base, and I was going to be in the accounting and finance. And I thought that would be easier than anything else and be inside. And I wish now they had electronics. If I scored high enough on electronics that I could have taken that too. Well, we're talking 40-something years ago, it would have been a good thing for me to do that, and I didn't do it. So, but anyway, I went through the training there, and I was almost 21 years old at the time. And one of the things that sort of aggravated me, when you would have a squad, they would take the tallest people to be in the front. And so there you'd be, I was 5'11", 5'10", and he'd be 6'1" or something. He'd be 17 years old, didn't know anything, and be trying to tell us what to do. And so that kind of bothered me a little bit, but we got along. And I've always been sort of a joker, and so there was a few times when this tech sergeant, T.I., he would say, flight on the walk. So I'd be down under, and so I'd walk out there when everybody else was around, and I'd say, flight on the walk. So he looked down from the top. He said, Swisher, I thought you were going to straighten up. And so from that point on, I did. And eventually they made me chapel guide because he was trying to do something. So I would walk all the guys that wanted to go to church, and then I'd stay outside and smoke cigarettes while they were inside the church. And so, but anyway, we got through that, and I never was too good at marching. And so eventually they put me in the third line where you don't have to turn as much. You just kind of step a little bit, and so, Now, I'm one of the few people that I kept up with that did retire and stayed in this, eventually did retire, and most of them just got out of it. And then we got shipped up to Wichita Falls, Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls. And so we went to accounting and finance school, and I'm sure everybody in there, I'm trying to think what the date was, when Kennedy got shot. We were there in class at that time, and man, they just shut everything down. I mean, just shut everything down. And they just canceled class, and we all marched back. We had to march to class and about a mile every day, march a mile up there to class, march a mile back. And so they just shut us down for about 2 days. We didn't have to do anything for about 2 days.
November of '63.
Through November, I'm trying to think what that date was, 22nd, wasn't it 22nd?
Sir.
I think it was November 22nd. So then, and during this time I turned 21, and my fiance was at home here in Fort Worth going to nursing school. And so I had to go through the commander and all this to get permission to marry her. And we got married on December the 14th after I turned 21 on November the 30th. And she finished up school, and so we didn't even see each other, just very little time. And because I'm still up there in class and she's still going to school too. So then I did one of the smartest things that I can think of as far as the military is concerned. They give you 30 days leave time every year, okay? So a lot of those guys got out and they would take the whole 30 days, and then they'd have to wait another year before they got anything. We'd only been in about 6 months. So the order said to report on or before so-and-so day. I took about 5 days off because it was in Sherman, Texas. Everybody was down in Fort Worth. They wasn't 70 miles away. It wasn't no big deal. So I showed them. They didn't even have a place for me. They didn't even. They couldn't even find a room for me. And they said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, it says on or before." And so the upshot of the whole thing was when I finally got out, I had 60 days leave time saved up. And that's what helped me buy a house and everything else to get kind of squared away. Most of those guys just wasted all of it as far as I was concerned. But anyway, that's what I did. And so I always felt like that was a good move on my part. Plus, by the time that I took that 60 days, I was a staff sergeant, see, and the pay was more money. So I always enjoyed that. I always felt like that was pretty slick about that. So anyway, I did a lot of things up there. We had the marching parades all the time when somebody gets retired. We retired up there. And it was all be out there on that tarmac on the flight line. And you're at ease and everything. And they'd have the medical guys over there. And next thing you know, somebody just fall right back, And you just had to stand there and let them fall to the ground. And they'd come over there and pick them up. And, I guess they go revive them or whatever, And I was always a country kid living out in Kennedale, Texas, and out there in the sun all the time. I never was a problem to that. I never had a problem about that. So anyway, I stayed there until I got out, in September 2000 and 2007. Not 2007, 1967. Sorry about that. And so I just had 2 years, you have to do in active duty so they could pull you back up if they wanted to. And so then I moved down to Fort Worth, and so forth and so on, got a job, and went to work out at, back then they called it GD, General Dynamics, right, General Dynamics out there. And so I stayed out there for a while and did some other things and tried to go back to college and so forth and so on. And so I got involved out here in Burleson with the scout troop. And this old boy, his son was there going to the scouts. And so he was telling me he was going to go back in the reserves. And I knew he was at least 39 years old, 40 or something like that. And I said, how you doing that? He said, well, as long as you get 20 years in before you're 60, And I'd had 20 years in at 58, see. And so I said, well, what the hell? It won't cost me nothing anyway, and I can get a physical out of it. And so I went down there to one of the Air National Guard places and talked to them a little bit, and they said, yeah, come on down. And went over to Grand Prairie for about a year, and something happened. I couldn't type fast enough, and so this female master sergeant decided she wanted a girl to do the job, and so I tried to go find somewhere else, and they said, no, we don't have a place for you. So that's how I wound up at Carswell, and in the plumbing department. And I thought, well, what the heck? It's be something to learn, that'd be something to do something with. And so the first couple of years that I was there, we didn't really go anywhere. We didn't go overseas. I think it was shut down for a while. and we didn't go overseas, but we went into Eglin Air Force Base in Florida. Went down there several times in Eglin Air Force Base in Florida, and it was always amazing to me that all those trees, and they got pine trees and stuff too, and all that stuff. And we come in there, and there's nothing there. And all of a sudden, after everybody starts unloading everything, building, putting the tents up and everything, next thing you know, there's a city there, a tent city, just like that, man. Everybody's got their tents up. And my job was to be in the what they call an erdolator, which is to process water to make potable water out of just a big old pond. There, they just had a big old pond, and they go through all that charcoal, and next thing you know, and we furnished the water for the whole camp, for them to the dining facilities, everything was furnished through there, and it was just really cool. I got a lot of pictures of that too. That where I took pictures. I was always the one that brought a camera, and a lot of times, since they would do that. I wouldn't be doing some of the work. I'd just be going around and taking pictures so that everybody, and I still do that today. There's a lot of different parts. But one of the things that was pretty cool, it was I don't know what you'd call it, a building or whatnot, but it was only about from here to the window, okay? But what they could do is take like a forklift or something and pull it apart, and it would be 32 feet long. But what they would use it for, it was a command post. And so they would have helicopters pick it up and drop it out there, and then they all had to do is pull it, and there's just like that, instant command post. And I always thought that was one of the most interesting. I mean, you opened it up and everything was all in the desk, and everything was all inside it. So I always thought that was pretty cool. And so that's a lot. I went to Eglin, like I said, several times. And then next thing you know, we get to go to Panama Canal Zone, and I thought, wow, what a trip, and you got to get up very close to see where the ships come on through and the whole bit. And the thing that struck me the most about Panama was that they were very nice. They was mostly Panamanian people, but they all spoke English. The majority all spoke English. But we took a bus tour, and actually, I think we took one of the trucks, and you'd go out there, and there'd be a block house, like those hay-dot blocks, and you'd see 8 or 9 people live in that one little place. And I thought, God, oh man, that's something. I mean, there'd be 8 or 9 people in there, and just you're talking about poverty. But up there where the hotels and all that stuff, well, the people live pretty good. They even have a casino there, and so it was, like I said, we got to go do some things too, and we got to play some cards. We had a lot of card playing. People, I don't know whether they even play cards much anymore, but we used to play poker there. And after we got through with our duty, and I saved a couple of guys. We had to go from Central America to South America, and on our duty, and so. We'd have to be leaving every morning about 6:30. Well, these guys go out to the club and they get drunk, and the young guys, and so I walk down there and they're still laying up in the bed, I said, guys, the bus is going to leave here in just a minute. Well, see, I was up in my 40s then, see, so I didn't, and I said, you guys, because they'd have gotten big trouble by not going to not getting on the bus, and so. I woke them up, and they jumped on their clothes, got their clothes. Young guys, they were in their 20s and 20, up in there, and they just, drank a little too much the night before. And so they told me later on, they said, oh, thank you, man, And so I kind of kept an eyeball on them from then on. And what I did most of the time was play cards. And then a buddy of mine, and we started doing some jogging and walking around the track. They had a track there, and we started walking around the track. And, you just try to do whatever you can do because there you are, One of the things that they did have that I thought was pretty cool, they have a comfort phone. I think that's what they used to call it, something like that, where that you can dial a certain number and you can call anywhere in the United States or wherever you want to call. And so I would call home once or twice a week, just to let them know I was doing okay. Part of that time I was single. I mean, part of that when I was in there. I was single when I went to Panama, but it was pretty neat seeing all those big ships coming through. And then they also have a kind of bazaar that you go down, and I've got a bunch of pictures in my thing over there about that, where they sold all kinds of stuff. And I bought I bought a lot of the. It's like a court thing, you know, and so all these people selling, these Panamanians are all selling their stuff, you know, and of course we'd all go in there and they take dollars just like anybody else does, and so we buy a bunch of that kind of stuff. And I bought several things. I think a wraparound thing and a mola and some other stuff, and brought them back. And so just had a pretty good time. In fact, we pretty well enjoyed that. I enjoyed that. The next trip we took was to Honduras, and boy, it was an interesting thing, because I had a little bag that I set down on just on the side. I was going to carry it with me, and we got up there early and it was still dark and everything, and I'd already put my other bag in there. So I got ready to get ready to go, and I can't find it. So he said, "No, you need to get on the bus. We're fixing to leave." I said, "Well, I got to get my carry-on bag." He said, "No." He said, "There was somebody to get it." I said, "Oh, okay, all right." So I did, and we got to Honduras, and it's not there. Somebody else had picked it up and turned it in to the, I guess the MPs or something, you know. And I thought, so I'm up there with no money, no little shoes, no thongs to wear on my feet, no nothing. And it was, I had friends that helped me out. They, you know, they were a little place called St. Louis or something, St. Louis something there. And so we finally got a chance to go down there to buy some stuff, you know, so forth and so on. And that's the one that looked like a mash. They had a ambulance thing, and it looked like a mash, got a red cross on it, and then there's the hills and stuff. And it's pretty neat. There was a lot of women there they were in the Army, and some were some Marines guys there. And what was unique about this is our humanitarian thing was to build two things. And we started out doing it because we were in the CE, civil engineering. And what our situation was, we was going to build from the ground up the building for them to have a new school and have a new clinic. And then the other guys, well, you know, part of our unit too, they couldn't get water right, because the water source was a big pipe. It just turned it on, you know, and it was about a mile away from where their village was. So we would go through there, and they would be places where the pipe, they just have rags tied around the pipe where it was leaking. And so half the water wasn't even getting to where it was supposed to be going. And every morning you'd see the guys, the kids, sometimes the kids and the women, with a little gallon, like a milk jug on top of their head, going to get water so they could have water for breakfast or water for the day. And they have to do that every day, 2 days, you know, in the evening, in the morning, every day. And so when we got through, they didn't have to walk about 50 yards and they fill up there. And they had a big cistern that they didn't know what they were doing. They put the water source in the bottom of it. And so when the weight got this high of the water, no water would, there wouldn't be any water coming in, because it was the water was holding it down. And so we drained all the water out, put cement, just plain cement there to seal all the leaks and everything. And then we put it up at the top, and then that way it filled up completely. And so when we left, in fact, one of them, the teachers were so impressed with us, they gave each one of us like mine was like a rooster, and it was a piggy bank that they made those kind of things to sell. And I bought a machete while I was there, and then I'm trying to think that thing that you carry, you know, in between two trees. Hammock. I don't know why I can't think of hammock, but they, you know, bought a hammock from a real colorful. They, you know, really go out of the way to make it all red and green and all kinds of pretty stuff. And we got to visit some folks there, and they had a little. We weren't able to. We could go during the afternoon. One day a week we could get out, and so they had a little. And it was the Honduran people at the home, and they do like a lot of Spanish people. You know how they'll have a cafe or a restaurant in the bottom and they live on the top. Well, that's what these folks did. We come in there and we could drink Honduran beer and sit outside, and they just had everything, Cokes and everything right there. And then they lived upstairs, and they fixed ham sandwiches and stuff. And so I have some pictures of us sitting there, you know, at one of the tables there, and just very, very friendly people. And Mr. Pulido, or Sergeant Pulido, was a Spanish person. In fact, he was actually born in Mexico and came over to the United States and was able to get into service. And we were there, and he was pretty much of a translator for us because he knew a lot more, you know, about that. And one of the Mexican young men, I don't know how to say this, but he said, "Y'all don't pay me to do this," and he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't translate anything from it, you know, which I thought was kind of. But a church had donated soccer shirts. You know, they were hot, but they were still not. And so we told some of the teachers and stuff that we were going to give those away. They were there at 6 o'clock the next morning with for those kids getting those soccer shirts. And so they had a field across the street, just dirt. That's all. You know, it wasn't no, you know, because they still had a school. It just was not much of a school. And you'd have thought those kids got the crowning glory or whatever, because they wore those. I mean, hot. God, it was hot, and they just wore them, and they were so proud to wear those shirts. Yeah. And what my job was with Mr. Pulido was find out, you know, what size the kids were, because they were all different sizes. You know, up, you know, 14, 15, down to 5 or 6 years old. And so you just like I said, we gave them the Taj Mahal or something. They just were so tickled to death about that. And so it got so hot though for us that we started out working about 3 hours and then take an hour off and work another 3 hours. Then eventually it got so hot that we'd work an hour and then take another hour, work another hour. That's all we did because it was so hot, man. Digging those ditches and stuff like that and putting the concrete in and all that, you know. Now the Army guys did some stuff too, the Marines guys, they were working on the school as well as we were, but I always felt like that was one of the best things that I'd ever been involved in. Tegucigalpa is the capital of Honduras, and that's where we flew into. I'm trying to think of the name of that. I think it's St. Louis or something like that. And anyway, 4 hours. We had to ride a bus 4 hours up to the top of this in Honduras there. You know, they had a lot of problems. We had a lot of problems since then. And so we wondered how the people, well, what they do, they'd catch that bus themselves. They'd have to get up like 4 o'clock, catch a bus at 4 o'clock to get down to Tegucigalpa to go to work at one of the places. They'd have to catch that. And so those buses just ran 24 hours a day, all the time going up and down that. And man, it was so sad because we'd look out there and they'd be men and women. And sometimes the women wouldn't even have anything on at the top, but they would take a milk carton or something like that, and they would just the water would only be about this deep in those little creeks and stuff, and that's how they would wash themselves. They had nothing else. There was nowhere else to do, and just makes you appreciate it when you get back home how lucky we are, and so. I just always appreciated that. And wish we could have done a lot more for them than what we did. But I went on to England later on, and the English people are just great people. They just really are. You know, you always heard about them being standoffish and all that stuff. And we went to what they call a stuff yourself, you know, like we would say, eat all you can, or, you know, that kind of stuff. They say it's called stuff yourself. And I took a lot of pictures of all the cathedrals, you know, some of those things are 400 years old, you know. But they knew we were Americans, and man, they said, come on over here, sit down, and I'll buy you, you know, get you a beer. And we just had a, they were just nice of them. They were, just come over here and sit down with us. And so we just felt real welcome about that. And English people, and I've got some pictures of some of the people. And it was really probably just as well as, I mean, I liked the trip too because we didn't have to we got to go to some castles and do some things like that. Buckingham Palace, when the changing of the guard, I've got some pictures of those things and stuff. But again, it was more of a fun Piccadilly Circus, all that kind of stuff. And the only thing that I can think of is that you did get to listen, do some history and so forth and so on, But they were just all fine. They were just all good people, To me, they laughed and cut up just like we would. Now, as far as you always hear the stuff about their teeth. I never noticed them whether they were bad teeth or what, because I just thought they were but they were very nice, very. We would go down to, there was a pub that was outside, and we would go down there, and I drank some stout. Never drank anything like that, and I said, golly, this stuff is bitter. Woo! I don't know how man, that was bad stuff. I couldn't hardly drink that. But it was a nice trip. We just had a good trip there. Not much noteworthy, except we did two things. We brought on our plane when we came over Texas-shaped tile. So if you were to go back now, at the bus stop in the concrete is a Texas-shaped thing. And then there's a patio that's made of nothing but Texas-shaped tiles. So we left our Texas mark in England. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of the ramp. No, can't even think of the base now. But it was just pretty cool that we did all that and left our mark there with the Texas stuff, and we did it on purpose. And that's what we did to bring it over there. So, and just like I said, we just had a good time over there. But again, the Honduras trip was the best as far as I'm concerned, because I just felt like we were helping some people over there. Partner, that's about all I can come up with. I don't know whether that's a long time or not.
I told you I'd have some questions, Butch.
Yes, sir.
So,
that's fine.
I think most people, when they think about the Air Force, first of all, they think pilots and flying. And then they think about the maintenance. But accounting and finance, when you went to Lackland, they determined that that's what you were suited for?
No, sir. You take four tests. You take a lot, like CE. You can take electronics. You take all those tests. I qualified for all of them. Mm-hmm. I just felt like that I wanted to maybe get a degree in accounting and finance after I got out. So I thought, well, that'll help me, and it really didn't. But that's then when I got sent to a permanent base. I did travel section, I did commercial, I did, like you said, accounting and I went down to the commissary, and I thought, well, what's wrong? But they wanted me to know all those jobs, and so they were being pretty good, being nice to me to try to do that.
When you went to Shepherd, and that's where you took the accounting and finance. What kind of day-to-day stuff did you do in that accounting and finance? We don't hear many people talk about this section of the Air Force, Butch, and that's why I'm asking these things.
Well, see, all of those, all the bases, because at that time I knew I wasn't going to go overseas. I actually wanted to. I put down England and somewhere else. I put down England and Texas because they told us that, well, wherever you put it down, that's not where you're going to get to go. And there I put down Texas, trying to get out of Texas, and then next thing you know, that's where I'm stationed. Now some of the guys did get to do what they wanted. Some of them went to California, ones, a lot of them went to, and so I just felt like that was something that I could make a career out of and not only that, see, some of those other jobs, you're out there Saturday and Sundays, and I just wanted a job where I'd work 5 days a week, and so that's all.
There's a section of the Air Force behind the airplanes and all
Oh
that
yeah,
other stuff,
oh yeah,
and that's
oh yeah,
what you were doing.
yeah. Not to say that I haven't. I've been in C-140s, C-130s, helicopters. A lot of that stuff. But of course, I wasn't one of the people to fly anything.
That was your active duty, and then you got out. Now, you went in the reserves. What was your civilian job while you were in the reserves?
Salesman, still is. I remember I'm an insurance salesman.
Insurance, okay.
Been selling, been selling it.
When you went to the Panama Canal, Butch, you said something about watching the ships.
Yeah, got pictures
Tell
of
us
it.
a little bit about that.
Oh, it's just, there was locks or something else. You don't think about it. And one of the things that we got to do, and two things we got to do for that matter, I'm sorry I missed a couple of them. We got to get on a destroyer. We did our job so well in Panama, my crew, in other words, the people that I was, that we got a day off. And so we got to go on a ship. And we had to be piped on and salute and everything to get on the ship. I've got pictures where I'm behind the wheel there. And some of the guys went over to a beach. I don't know how they got over there. And they just dug them a hole in the beach and got drunk and just went to sleep in the sand, while he was off. But it was just fun. And then the other was, I got to go on a helicopter ride. And what they were doing was touch and go. They'd come up and then they'd go back down and land and then go right back up. Well, after about the fourth or fifth time, I wasn't feeling all that cool about that. But we flew in that helicopter right down the Panama Canal, right down the Panama. And it looks just like, Vietnam with all those trees and all that stuff, it looks like you're going down the Mekong River or something, because once you get past the city part of it. But it was pretty neat to see all those big, huge ships. They'd be down there, and then all of a sudden the water comes in. Next thing you know, they're coming up and then go back. I thought that was pretty cool. And so I liked that part of it. Yes, sir.
I missed it somewhere, Butch.
Okay.
Well, when you went in the reserves, the only thing you could get into was, I don't know what the MOS or whatever is, but you were a plumber.
Well, what happened was they wanted me to be a gas jockey to fill up the planes out there on the flight line. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. Again, because like I said, that's all hours of the night. I didn't want to do that. So they said, well, we got one other thing, and that's plumbing. And I said, okay, fine, because I thought, that'll help me out in civilian life. That'll help me, at home. And I did. It did quite a bit. I learned. The only thing about it, we didn't really do much repair. In other words, if a hot water heater went out, we just jerked it out, put another one in, or plumbing, you just put new pipes, or we did sprinkler systems, just so it wouldn't like you'd be repairing anything. We just jerk it out, put a new one in. That's all we'd do that, just make it simpler.
I just wanted to make sure I was clear on
Yeah,
the plumbing.
right. That's why I just thought that was
When
better.
you went to Panama, this trip to Panama, what did you build in Panama, or what did you fix in Panama?
Well, there was the officers and some of the enlisted people, all the stuff had fallen off, the adobe kind of stuff had fallen off. And so we had a really nice guy that was Panamanian, and he was in charge of us doing that. And that's what we did. Where all that was off, we'd put mud. We had to teach the girls how to put mud, what we call, and he'd slap it up there, and then we'd get it where, and he would get it where it'd be right. We'd put it up there and smooth it down. And that's what we did, was to make those presentable, because we asked them what kind of seasons they had in Panama. And he said, wet and dry. That's all. It's just wet. Because it's pretty much the same temperature all the time in Panama. And that's all it was, either rain or just dry. That's all they think. But he was very nice. He was very nice. And I've got some pictures in there about a huge moth. God, it was on the side of one of the buildings, just huge moth. And I thought, wow. So like I said, I took a lot of pictures, and I did take a picture of my commander, and he was just sitting up on the veranda up there, just kind of, lean back, taking a nap. He wasn't all that keen about he wasn't all that keen about that.
In Honduras,
Yes, sir.
I think it was Honduras.
Yes.
Uh, you got a rooster
I still
at
got.
at the
It's a
farmer's
bank.
market, or
No. The teachers. So in the teachers, I've got pictures of the teachers over there too, that they were so thankful that we were doing what they did. They gave us all a present, and that's what they,
what
they
was the rooster made of?
not ceramic, but clay, and then it was very decorated, pretty red, and all that kind of stuff. And you actually put money in it, and
Still have it?
Yeah, I still have it. Sure do. Absolutely, yeah. Those people. Oh, I was going to mention this too. Hondurans also were guards, because we had concertina wire all the way around the compound, and we told them that was to keep us in. But the truth of the matter was to keep them out. And I'll go back to this because you're absolutely correct. This is pretty cool. When we got ready to leave, we had chocolate. We all got mess kits with chocolate and stuff, And the kids would say chocolate, chocolate, because they knew what that was about. And we weren't supposed to give them candy and stuff, but some of them did. And they'd throw it out there, and those kids would wiggle under the concertina wire to get that candy. That's just how bad they wanted candy. And so when we got ready to leave, we were in our deuce and a half coming out, loading everything up. And so we were just throwing candy out. And I mean, they were just going crazy because they never had. And I thought about that several times, whether it's better to have something one time than to never have it at all. So I don't know what the real answer to that is, but they would have never had. We had candy that they'd never seen before, and chocolate too. Yeah.
Last thing I've got here, Mr. Polito,
Arnolfo Polito. Mm-hmm.
who started the restaurant chain in...
No, sir.
No?
He's not kin to them. I mean,
Okay.
that's just a pretty common name. He's not kin to them.
Okay.
I know who you're talking about, but he's not kin to them.
that was-
He works for the U.S. Treasury right now, and he didn't finish up. His hours got changed to where he was working, and so he no longer could go be in the military, in the thing. And I felt sorry for him because he was sharp guy. He was airman of the year out there and everything. So I felt he and I were real good friends, and even though there was about 12 or 14 years difference, my age, because when I went to Panama, that I was the oldest person. Yeah, I was the oldest person there in Panama and the oldest person there in Honduras, because I was like 53 or 54 years old, see? And all the rest of the guys were in their 40s or maybe even younger than that, And but there were a lot of guys at Honduras, man, knocked them out. I mean, they got not heat stroke, but they and they just laid up in their bunks and so. Like I said, I living in Texas didn't bother me as much as it did some of those other guys.
You had these trips to Panama, Honduras, England,
Mm-hmm.
but then as a reserve, did you have weekend?
Oh yeah.
Okay. And you went to what, Carswell? I guess?
Carswell always. Well, occasionally we would go down to Mineral Wells. There used to be a helicopter place down there where they taught, they used to be Mineral Wells, And so we would go down there, and we would go down there for 3 days sometime and do training down there. And it was pretty cool because I'm trying to think. There's those binoculars that can red light, or they can see, just a little bit of light, and you would not have them on. You couldn't see anybody out there walking around at all. And you put those in there, you could see. I mean, they were right there, And I can't even think of the name of but it was binoculars or something, sight things or whatever it was, and infrared. I think that's what it was, infrared. And so you wouldn't see anything. I mean, because we would all be dressed in our BDUs, and you wouldn't see it. And then all of a sudden you put those, and they're 10 feet away. I thought that was pretty cool too. I always got to do that.
You certainly had a number of interesting experiences, Butch.
I did.
Accounting and finance, and then plumbing, and all these places you
Mhm,
got to
mhm.
see. And
Yeah.
one thing that strikes me, and I found the same thing in my service, we just don't realize how good we have it here.
Oh man, it's just something else. It really. And they don't. The people in Honduras and Panama, they're aware of that. They're aware of that, but it doesn't seem to bother them all that much. I mean, they don't feel like that they're, worse off than all of us. They hear about all that stuff, but they don't think they're worse off. But they just don't know any different. But like I said, man, in some of the Honduran places, they take, I was talking about that hammock thing. They just have a hook up on the wall, and that's what they sleep in. They hook it up, and that's what they sleep at night, and then they just drop the thing back down. And that way there's 8 or 9 people can sleep there because they just sleep in the corner, And some of them had tables, some of them didn't have tables. They just ate, so, but, I get, like I said, I get a little misty about that because they're great people and they deserve all the help they get. And so we already felt. It was in the Air Force times about humanitarian and about us, not just us, but all the guys that were over there. Pretty cool. I always thought that was one of the best as far as I'm concerned. The other was just mostly for ourselves, you know what I'm saying, doing stuff, but that was for them, and I always appreciated that.
Thank you for coming by, Butch.
No
We
problem.
appreciate you taking the time to do the interview and your time you gave for the country.
You bet.
You bet, sir.
Okay.